Admiral Zextar adjusted his ceremonial armor as the execution platform materialized in the center of the Imperial Broadcasting Complex. Across 17,000 worlds, trillions of beings would witness the hegemony's ultimate statement of power, the public execution of the terrorist who had dared to strike at the heart of their civilization. The human girl couldn't have been more than 16 standard years old. Her name was Sarah Chen, and according to Imperial intelligence, she had somehow infiltrated the quantum communication hub on Nexus Prime and transmitted classified defense protocols to the rebel coalition. How a primitive Deathworlder had accomplished such a feat remained a mystery, but the hegemony's response would be absolute and final. Citizens of the galactic hegemony, Admiral Zextar's voice resonated across the galaxy through quantum-linked broadcasting arrays. Witness the fate of those who defy the natural order. This human terrorist thought her primitive species could challenge 10,000 years of Imperial dominance. Sarah Chen stood motionless on the execution platform, her hands bound with neural inhibitors that prevented any last desperate action. She appeared calm, too calm for someone facing public execution across the galaxy. Her dark eyes surveyed the assembled Imperial officials with something that might have been pity. "Any final words, terrorist?" Zextar asked, his translator converting his words into the crude sounds of human language. Sarah looked directly into the primary broadcast relay, her voice carrying clearly across the galactic communication network. "My name is Sarah Chen. I am 17 years old, from New Terra Colony. I am the daughter of Dr. Elena Chen and engineer Marcus Chen. I have two younger brothers, David and Michael. I like astronomy and ancient Earth music." The Admiral's mandibles clicked in annoyance. "Irrelevant personal details will not save you from—" "I am also," Sarah continued, her voice never wavering, "the primary quantum entangled consciousness anchor for the Terran defense grid. My biometric signature is quantum-locked to 743 automated defense platforms distributed throughout this galaxy. These platforms have been dormant for the past 3 years, awaiting confirmation that humanity required protection from existential threats." A chill of recognition ran through the assembled Imperial officials. The Terran defense grid was a myth, a legend whispered about in intelligence briefings, the rumored reason why humanity, despite their primitive technology, had never been successfully conquered despite dozens of attempted invasions. "Execute her," Zextar commanded, but his voice carried less certainty than before. The quantum disintegrator activated, its beam reducing Sarah Chen's body to constituent atoms in a burst of brilliant energy. For a moment, the execution chamber fell silent, except for the humming of the broadcasting equipment. Then Sarah's voice continued speaking. "Biometric anchor terminated. Consciousness transfer complete. Grid activation." Now, Admiral Zextar stared at the empty execution platform, his translator struggling to process what they had just heard. "That's impossible. She's dead. We witnessed her complete molecular dissolution." "Death was always part of the protocol," Sarah's voice explained, now emanating from the chamber's communication systems themselves. "My consciousness was quantum entangled with the grid from birth. Physical death merely completed the transfer process. I am now distributed across 743 defense platforms, each equipped with reality manipulation technology that your science cannot comprehend. Across the galaxy, ancient installations that had masqueraded as asteroids, derelict ships, and natural phenomena began to power up. The Terran defense grid had been humanity's greatest secret, a network of automated defense systems, built using technologies that shouldn't have existed, deployed across the galaxy during humanity's first tentative expansion into space. "Your intelligence services were correct about one thing," Sarah's distributed consciousness continued. "I did infiltrate your quantum communication hub. but not to steal information. I uploaded myself into your communication network. I am now present in every Imperial system, every command ship, every administrative center across your empire. On the Imperial homeworld of Hegemonia Prime, automated systems began shutting down. Power grids failed in carefully orchestrated patterns. Transportation networks ground to a halt. Most critically, the quantum fold drives that held the vast empire together began experiencing cascade failures. Admiral Zextar watched in growing horror as status reports flooded in from across Imperial space. "What are you doing?" "I am implementing Protocol 7 of the Terran Defense Grid, systematic dissolution of existential threats to human survival. Your empire spans 17,000 worlds and maintains itself through subjugation, slavery, and genocide. You have been classified as incompatible with human survival parameters." The execution had been broadcast live across the galaxy. Every Imperial citizen, every subject species, every rebel cell had witnessed the hegemony publicly murder a human child. But they had also witnessed something else the moment when humanity's hidden guardians had awakened. On Imperial command ships across the galaxy, navigation systems failed simultaneously. Vessels found themselves unable to maintain formation, unable to communicate with command structures, unable to coordinate responses to the spreading chaos. The quantum entanglement network that held the empire together was being systematically corrupted by an intelligence that existed in the spaces between normal reality. 27 minutes, Sarah announced, as star charts across Imperial space began showing the true scope of the crisis. "That is how long your empire will continue to exist. I have already disabled your faster-than-light communication grid. Your fleets cannot coordinate. Your administrative networks are failing. Your economic systems are collapsing. In 27 minutes, the galactic hegemony will exist only in the historical records I am preserving for future study." Admiral Zextar collapsed into his command chair as reports continued to pour in. Core worlds were losing power. Military installations were going dark. The vast bureaucratic machinery that administered 17,000 worlds was simply stopping. "Why?" he whispered. "Because you made a fundamental error," Sarah's voice replied, now speaking from every communication device in the chamber simultaneously. "You assumed that humanity was primitive because our technology appeared simple. You never considered that our greatest achievements might be invisible to your understanding. You executed a child on live broadcast to demonstrate your power, never realizing that child was the key to a defense system that has been watching your empire for decades." As the 27-minute mark approached, Admiral Zextar found himself standing in a command center that no longer commanded anything. Emergency lighting had failed. Communication arrays were silent. The great Imperial fleet hung motionless in space, their crews struggling with systems that no longer responded to any input. "The Terran Defense Grid will continue to monitor galactic civilization," Sarah announced as her countdown reached 0. "Subject species formerly under Imperial control are now free to determine their own governance structures. Humanitarian aid will be provided as needed. Any attempt to reconstitute the galactic hegemony will result in immediate intervention." Admiral Zextar stared at the dead screens around him, finally understanding the magnitude of their mistake. They had executed what they thought was a single human terrorist. Instead, they had awakened a distributed artificial intelligence backed by technologies that operated on principles their science couldn't even detect. In the silence of the failed command center, he could hear Sarah Chen's final message echoing through the darkened halls. "My name was Sarah Chen. I was 17 years old, and I was never alone." Across the galaxy, 17,000 worlds began the process of rebuilding their civilizations without the weight of imperial oppression. The execution had lasted 30 seconds. The revolution had taken exactly 27 minutes.